Everyone asks if we're alone in the universe, but that's the wrong question. The real question is, if the universe is so big and so crowded, then where are all the aliens? Because if you look up at the night sky and do the math, something doesn't add up. Our galaxy has somewhere between 100 and 400 billion stars, and most of them have planets. Billions of those planets sit in the so-called habitable zone, or Goldilocks zone. In other words, the right distance for liquid water, the right temperature for life. And the galaxy is 13 billion years old, which means life had billions of years of a head start before Earth even formed. So if we run those numbers, the galaxy should be loud, crowded, full of something, someone. So here's the question a physicist named Enrico Fermi reportedly asked over lunch one day, and it's haunted science ever since. Where is everybody? Because we have looked, and for over 60 years we've pointed our biggest radio telescopes at thousands of stars, scanned billions of frequencies, and listened for any whisper that something out there is technologically advanced. And what we've heard back is basically nothing, except for one brief tantalizing blip in 1977 that never repeated. Beyond that, total silence. The galaxy looks exactly the way it would look if we were completely alone. So that contradiction, the math says crowded, the evidence says empty, is called the Fermi Paradox. And the answers people usually reach for are the two you've probably already heard. So the first one is, maybe we're just simply first. Maybe intelligent life is so absurdly hard to get started that we're the earliest ones to make it. And the galaxy is quiet because the party hasn't really begun. Comforting in a way, but it means that the hard part's behind us. Answer 2 is the more famous one, and it's definitely the darker of the two. But it goes like this: maybe civilizations keep destroying themselves. The logic goes, any species smart enough to build radios is eventually smart enough to build weapons. Nuclear, biological, artificial intelligence that slips the leash. Sound familiar? So they rise, they broadcast for a few centuries, and then snuff themselves out before they ever reach the stars. Under this version, the silence isn't empty space, it's the sound of one civilization after another lighting a match in a room full of gas. It's a popular answer because it feels personal. We look at our own world and recognize the pattern. And quite frankly, we're scared we might be next. But both of those answers have something in common, though. They both assume that the hard part is making it all the way to intelligence, that the bottleneck is right at the top of the staircase. But what if the real filter isn't at the top? What if it's hiding somewhere in the middle and it has no villain at all? So here's the assumption almost everyone makes without noticing. We talk about a planet being habitable like it's a permanent label, like it's a world's either in the club or it isn't. But habitability isn't a state, it's a time window. It opens, it stays open for a while, and then it closes. And it closes whether or not anyone's living there. Think about what it actually takes to keep a world alive. You need a magnetic field to shield your air from the stellar wind, and that field comes from a hot, churning core that slowly cools and dies. You need an atmosphere, which gets stripped away molecule by molecule over hundreds of millions of years. And then you need a stable star. But every star slowly brightens as it ages. In fact, our own sun is about 30% brighter than when it was first born. Every single one of those pieces is temporary. And if any one of them fail, the window shuts. The planet doesn't need a disaster, it just needs time. And we don't have to imagine this. We have two perfect demonstrations sitting right next to us. On one side of Earth is Mars. 4 billion years ago, Mars had rivers, lakes, possibly an ocean, a magnetic field, a thick sky, and by any reasonable definition, it was habitable. Then it lost its magnetic field. Because it was small, and small worlds actually cool fast, and once that shield dropped, the solar wind peeled its atmosphere away into space. The rivers froze, the water vanished. Today it's a frozen desert with barely a whisper of air. Its window opened, held for maybe 1 billion years, and then slammed shut. No war, no mistakes, just physics. On the other side of us is Venus, almost Earth's twin. Nearly the same size, the same materials, the same neighborhood. It may have had shallow oceans for billions of years. And then a runaway greenhouse effect took hold, which is hotter air holds more water vapor, which traps more heat, which makes it hotter still. Essentially a feedback loop with no off switch. The oceans boiled off into the sky and escaped into space, and now Venus is hot enough to melt lead under crushing acid clouds. So one world froze and the other one burned, and both had everything life needs, but both now are dead. So now scale that up to the whole galaxy, and here's the cruel arithmetic. On Earth, it took over 3 billion years to get from the first microbe to anything you'd call complex. 3 billion years of the window staying continuously open. But what if the average window across the galaxy only stays open for 1 billion years or 500 million? Then life might start all over the place. The chemistry might be easy. Microbes might bloom on 1 billion worlds, and almost none of them would ever get enough time to become anything more. The window would close while the planet was still nothing more than pond scum. The microbes would live and die, and no one would ever know they were there. That's really the third answer. The filter isn't at the beginning, where life struggles to start, and it's not at the end, where civilizations blow themselves up. It's somewhere in the middle, the long, fragile bridge between simple life and complex life that most worlds never get to finish crossing. And here's what makes it colder than the self-destruction story. That story at least has a choice in it. Someone failed. Someone could have chosen better. This one has no villain, no button, no decision. A world doesn't vote on whether its core cools or its star brightens. The window closes because that's what windows do. It's not a test you can pass, it's a clock you can't stop. Which means the night sky may not be a quiet room where everyone's hiding. It might be a graveyard, not of fallen empires, but of almost worlds. Worlds that had warm oceans and promising chemistry for a few 100 million years, and then went cold and silent before anything woke up to look around. Billions of them. The universe doesn't need a war or a monster to explain the silence. The silence is just what you get when habitable conditions are temporary and complex life is slow. But, and this is the part I can't stop thinking about, that makes us almost impossibly lucky. Earth got the rare long window, the big stable core, the well-behaved star, the right size, the right distance, and enough time. Barely enough. Complex life didn't show up on Earth until the last 15% of our planet's history. Intelligence? Forget about it. In the last final eye blink. We're not the inevitable end of a process that was always going to work. We're actually the unlikely survivors of that system that almost always fails. Not through catastrophe, but through the quiet running out of time. We're inside an open window right now, looking out, unable to see the frame, and the window won't stay open forever. So maybe the silence was never a mystery to solve, but maybe it's a reminder. We might be in one place in this whole enormous galaxy where something got enough time to look up and ask why it's so quiet. Here's my view. Fully transparent. I believe we have been visited. I also believe that many of these encounters, perhaps even most of them, have been hidden or obscured by, who knows, governments for some reason that are not difficult to imagine. Honestly, some of them may have just wanted the technology for themselves to keep it secret. Some may have feared public panic. Some simply may just believe ordinary people couldn't handle the truth without becoming frightened, panicky lunatics. And if I'm being honest, I don't necessarily blame them. They're not really wrong about that, quite honestly. But whatever the reason, I find it increasingly difficult to believe that we are alone in the way we once imagined, despite the fact that we've been listening to the stars. The stories have just become too numerous to dismiss with a wave of a hand. The unexpected objects, the aerial phenomena, the personal accounts, the testimony of military personnel now, the recent congressional hearings on unidentified anomalous phenomena. I mean, it's just too much. To me, this is not terrifying, it's actually encouraging. Because even if one civilization, just one, has crossed the great dark between the stars, then survival is actually possible. Progress is actually possible. It means intelligence doesn't always destroy itself before it reaches beyond its own little world. And that gives me hope for all of us. So perhaps humanity is not doomed to remain forever trapped by greed, fear, and the hunger for power. Perhaps we might yet grow wise enough to survive ourselves. The odds may not favor us, history may not flatter us, but we're not finished yet. And that's encouraging. And if there's even a chance that mankind can prove the mathematics of despair wrong, then that's no small hope. Anyways, tell me what you think below. I'm curious what you think and what answers you actually buy. That we're the first, that everyone destroys themselves, or, that we have been visited. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate you all. Like and subscribe. It definitely helps the channel. And give me a comment below. I'm curious what you guys think. Thanks.